Welcome to a tutorial video on using React. In this video, I'm going to talk about importing media. So as a review, when we use React, we're using render functions. Our different components render, and these work calling one after another in a chain. Let's talk about this code a little bit and how that concept works as we work into thinking about how we're going to import media. Let's start here on line 33. Notice React DOM and render. Again, the cycle of render functions. It is looking for an object representing an element called shopping list. Shopping list up here is a class that extends the React component, making it a React component. So down here in render, line 34, it say, okay, render this, coming up, looking for this object, shopping list, and it has its own render function. Again, render, calling render, calling render. So we're moving from DOM, React DOM up to shopping list and its React function. Within this, it's returning all of this, which is in turn calling its own function, create item. Create item is up here within shopping list, so within its return function, it's returning a new element representing an object, item, and then passing it a property, x, which is passed into create item. So down here, we're calling create item with an argument 1, then an argument 2, and an argument 3, each one a number each time. It's calling its internal function, this create item, and it's passing that as a property into the new element object. So finally, we're getting up here to item. So we had React DOM was calling render, calling the render of shopping list, which is then eventually calling the render of item up here at the top of this. Within its own render function, it's returning this. So a line item, and then an image. So when we're using media, finally getting around to the concept of using media, we can't just include the URL to it. This is part of the way React works. It uses a process called Webpack and puts everything together and helps conserve space. What this means, though, is paths to different things may get changed, may get rearranged to help it all be more efficient. So, if we're working with media, then we have to take this into account as we're planning things. One of the ways we do that is through import. Just like we're importing other files, we can import images. Notice right here in line 14, import checkmark from and the location relative to this file of the media we want. In this case, it's within this local directory, look for a directory called images. Within that, look for checkmark.png. So coming over here, we see we're looking at source, then images, and within images, checkmark.png, which we see right here. So coming back over to index.js, we see we can import the location of media. We can then use that within JSX to expand that out to the relative path within our source, which will get moved into an equivalent relative path within our production environment, or whenever the files are eventually compiled. So we actually see that right here. Notice the source of this image is the value of checkmark. Checkmark is representing up here this location, which, as I said, when it gets compiled and run through Webpack, will get arranged correctly. So we can't use the exact relative path, but we can import the relative path, and React and all of its various processes will handle that for us. So we see right here, checkmark, and we're using JSX to interpolate that value here. Notice down here we're using this, that props, that number to get the number that was passed into as a property, this item. So we're passing number right here, this, that props, that number. What's the property name of the number that was passed into this? We can see the result over here on the right hand side. Notice the check mark and then item number 1, because 1 was passed from shopping list into item, item number 2, and item number 3. Each time a new number that was set initially down here in shopping list, which was sent to create item, sent it to item render, and finally we got both our images and our values passing through this.props each time, and coming back to the idea of chaining render functions one after another to create all of this together. So as a review, if we want to import media, we can't use the exact path, but what we can do is set the relative paths to the file in which we want those media files to be included. We saw this example right here on line 4. We said import media, giving over this variable to the path we want, from, and then its location to a relative path. So we can put our source together, and then it will be packaged for us and compiled all together, and then produced finally. And we don't have to worry about those paths, we just set it within our source. And we saw that right here in images and at checkmark.png. So it was imported, this variable was set to this path, and then we could use it within JSX to get those values to set the source for different images. And that's how we use media within React. It's not terribly complicated, but we sort of have to keep a couple of things in mind, how Webpack works and how React organizes things. Thanks for watching.